Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in this one, I'm going to be doing a breakdown of my live gameplay on the enhancement Shaman and telling you basically how you can get some success with some easy tips and advice in order to start climbing the ladder with the specialization. Enhancement Shaman is a phenomenal spec, I think, across all portions of PvP at the moment. And I am playing the Stormbringer talent tree, the hero talent tree. This is a much easier version than the totemic one that requires a lot more steps to set up and can be outplayed a lot more. So I would recommend this to anybody at the beginning to intermediate and even advanced stages. I've made it quite far with this. In this specific clip, we're fighting up against a rogue and a mage, which is a very common combination of classes. You want to use Earth Grab Totem to get combat against rogues, and then immediately get on top of them to prevent them from re-stealthing. Flame Shock when targets are together to get it on as many targets as possible. And I kind of just let Ascendants rip right away. The main reason for this is I see the rogue in a stun, so they'll be unable to disarm me and stun me, but also because I want to try and get 2 ascendances basically in every single round. So you want to get it almost immediately. Anytime you see that the threat that can crowd control your ascendants is removed by a stun or otherwise, you want to just be popping that, sending it, and trying to force as many cooldowns basically as possible. In the opener, it is important against mages also to be using your Greater Purge basically on cooldown just to strip off the initial buffs and hope that they never rebuff at that point, so you're able to purge off more effective things like Alter Time and Barrier. I can see Ironbark here on my raid frame for my Resto Druid, which is why I'm not using my Astral Shift defensive cooldown. If you want my UI, I'll have a link to the video at the end of this video so you can get my exact UI and breakdown. And we're just keeping Flame Shock up and basically just spamming Storm Strike and trying to spam our Lightning Crash as well. Those are both kind of the main priority spells. You're not going to really use Lava Lash unless there's literally just nothing else to press at that moment in time. We're using Cap Totem here to stun the healer. I always place my Cap Totem away from the enemy attackers and then move it in with projection right when it's about to trigger. So you wait about 1.5 seconds and then you can move it in, and most players don't have time to react to kill it if you use it like that. Here we're in a kidney shot. We're going to drop a grounding totem out of it. I see my Druid in tree form in the corner over here, and I seem to be fine on health, so I'm not going to use my Astral Shift. Typically against an assassination rogue, your Astral Shift is going to be used on Deathmark, and it's going to be used on Kingsbane. These are the big damage moments that you're going to be preparing for. While you are chasing a mage down, you can use your Earth Grab Totem periodically to pin them with a root in order to catch up to them. Right now I didn't need to. We're able to force a cooldown. Whenever you force a defensive cooldown like an Ice Block here, just switch targets. Don't just stand there and do nothing. You always want to be doing damage. This forces the Mistweaver to spend more mana should this game go later in the game into dampening. All of these little tiny swaps that don't net you a kill will net you a mana advantage later on. Here we can see the ice barrier up, so because we were purging throughout the game, we can instantly remove that shield and continue to chase down the mage using the Earth Grab Totem and our Gust of Wind to jump to the target. However, I am going behind the pillar. And if you are going to make this type of decision when you have no trinket, it's usually a good idea to use your Astral Shift before you wrap around the other side. My Resto Druid does reposition and assist me there, but do note that if you are going to commit for a push like that, you're really going to want to make sure that you use a defensive cooldown if you don't have a trinket. It's very dangerous, honestly, what I just did right there. We got another Ice Block, we swap to the Rogue, we get a Cloak of Shadows, we're forcing more mana from the Mistweaver Monk. And because we sent our Ascendants very early on in this round, this mage is now down 2 Ice Blocks and my Ascendants comes up in 2 seconds. So this is why I really like that timing. It's just to try and make sure that the enemy crowd control isn't available. So the Rogue mostly is what I'm afraid of. My healer can dispel Polymorph, but now we can just press Ascendants and we can start letting it rip onto the mage. I see a silence. We're just going to be spamming Storm Strike this whole time during Ascendants, just one buttoning him down to the ground. We're top damage against the best classes in the game in the current meta, and that's why I think this build is very effective. You just want to make sure that you are utilizing your utility and your purges against mages basically on cooldown as much as possible. And then obviously Wind Shear and Grounding here, now that we're going to reverse and we're going to be playing against the Resto Druid version of this, is going to be a lot more important to stop crowd control because you've got a Mistweaver on your team, and Mistweavers are incredibly weak to crowd control. So both the mage and the Resto Druid are going to be hungering for your Mistweaver. So you do want to try and protect that healer as much as possible. Whereas with the Druid, you don't really need to worry about protecting them. They can protect themselves from Polymorph. You want to be more so kind of stopping Ray of Frost and stopping big burst moments and swaps to the Druid. And this is kind of these playstyle adaptations that you're going to want to be making depending on which healer is on your team. Once again, we just run beeline it, trying to get an Earth Grab Totem around the corner to get combat, so this way that our Mistweaver can hopefully get hot on us, get some, you can see the Soothing Mist, get some combat. We just run through Flame Shock and immediately start attacking. I see the Rogue opens on my Monk on the other side of the map, so I'm just going to pop Ascendants. I know that the Rogue isn't near me. The Resto Druid makes a quick reaction to Nature Swiftness clone me though, and I did trinket aggressively. I think trinketing during your Ascendance window is pretty much the only time that you're really going to have to trinket and shovel, because if you don't, you're going to lose out. But obviously you would like to trinket the longest crowd control, because now you can see you're disarmed. So usually trinketing the first stun is kind of reckless. Resto Druid saw that, punished it immediately with Nature Swift's clone. Usually want to sit the first like 3-second stun and then trinket the longer crowd control at the end of it. Here we're in a smoke bomb. We're going to drop a grounding totem to stop any crowd control coming in from our Mistweaver, because we see the Mistweaver able to kind of keep us alive right now. I could have used Astral Shift here. I really don't think that it would have necessarily been bad, because we can see Deathmark on my debuff side here and Kingsbane here, and it was a smoke bomb. My monk does ultimately use Life Cocoon though, so I see that even though they're in a polymorph, Life Cocoon being up means that I'm going to be decently protected, and every time that you spend Maelstrom, you'll be generating stacks to get instant healing surges. So I have 20 stacks, which means I can use 2 instant healing surges, which I know is about 20 to 40% of my health, depending on RNG if it crits or not. So those are going to be my main goals. Mage is getting kind of out of range of us. Honestly, using Earth Grab here wouldn't be too bad, but the Shadow Priest is keeping him snared for us. We're able to get back onto the target. With the Resto Druid, Greater Purge becomes a little bit more challenging, because right here I pressed it, but if they have 3 stacks of Life Plume, it's just going to take 2 stacks of the Life Plume off and then reset them and start stacking up, and doesn't do anything. It just gives the mage an extra 2 hots from the Purge effect. So purging as a Druid mage is the most difficult. Honestly, I think saving the Purge, either just to try an RNG Ice Barrier altar, is ideal, or purging the off target like the Rogue, because the Rogue will likely only have 2 rejuvenations, which you'll just strip both of those. And then because we have a Shadow Priest on our team, the dots are going to start to really rip on the Rogue. So honestly, in this matchup, using Purge on the Rogue is a bit better, because you can see right now we're swapping to the Rogue and he's already at 10%. Swapping against a Resto Druid is key. It's not as much about just like tunneling the mage. I see this mistake a lot, not even just for Enhanced Shaman players, but just every player in general. You don't really want to tunnel one target. So keeping Purges on the off target and kind of tabbing to them whenever you can't attack, like the mage right here, he's running out of range. I can't attack him. So going after the Rogue while moving at the mage at the same time. That's the trick. You can see I'm attacking the Rogue while walking at the mage and trying to get over to him. Now, there's a lot of crowd control here, and I'm the only interrupt, so getting Cyclone here is a bit dangerous. We have our Trinket, and we have our Burrow coming up, so that's going to be our big combo, and we still have Ascendance. We do use Purge here on Alter Time. So if Alter Time appears or Ice Barrier appears, I will Purge the Mage and just hope we RNG it. If it doesn't, then basically on cooldown, I think off-purging the Rogue is the best way to run the Druidum or to keep pressure for your team moving in. Now, this Mage is trying to bait me, so I used Burrow because my Monk was in crowd control, and I'm just going to wait because I have Ascendance. There's no reason for me to run in there with limited defense. I can root, and I can stay out of range with Ascendance. So this is where I stun the Rogue to stop disarm, and I'll just stay far away from him. This is a way to avoid the disarm effects that are in the game, and a way to maximize your damage. And I still have my Medallion. So if I get put into a stun here, if I get put into a disarm here, I'll be able to just Medallion and get out. We're able to force Ice Block and look at the cleave damage on the Rogue. We can finish the Rogue as well. We can just drop both of those targets. So there's little tactics that you can do that I've learned throughout my climb recently on Enhanced with Shaman to get around a lot of those sticking points, which is mostly disarm classes like Rogues, Windwalkers, and Warriors. Windwalker is a bit harder because they have ranged disarm and range paralyze. Honestly, Windwalker is probably the most annoying one, or maybe Warrior if they're using their fear exclusively for you, which most of them will. But you want to make sure the target that CCs your Ascendance gets Cap Totem, Hex, rooted, something. Make sure they're in a crowd control effect and just rip that Ascendance right away as soon as possible in the round at that moment in time to try and guarantee that you can actually like get uptime on your cooldown, because that is your big window. If you don't get uptime on it, you're not going to be getting W's. And then when you're trying to make your push, you're going behind the pillar with no trinket, make sure you have a wall or something that you can pop before you run around the corner. Otherwise, you're going to rely on your teammates a lot in those situations, and you don't want to be doing that. You want to be able to control the flow of the match yourself. Here I stay in the back with a Rogue so he can try and get a sap. And I'm just kind of waiting to see where we go. I'm imagining that Mage is going to be the target. We purge him right away on our way towards him, and we just pop Ascendance right away. I look for a Hex on the Monk. If I get kicked, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to spam Storm Strike. This is another thing that I don't see a lot of Enhancement Shamans doing, which is just spamming Hex whenever you're not in range of something, just to bait interrupts. Even though the Mage can decurse it, he still counterspelled me, so it's like counterspell's gone, and that means my Druid can cast Cyclones and not have to worry about it. So I can do full damage even if I'm counterspelled. Here we should have killed the Psyfiend. It's right here behind me. This is a very important thing against the Shadow Priest. You can tell right now how important it is because it got pretty much every cooldown off of just one mistake, just not seeing this little Psyfiend and not finishing it. This is a very common mistake I see from not just Enhanced Shaman players, but all players in general, even myself right now, not noticing the Psyfiend. So this is the dangers when you fight a Shadow Priest plus a caster, because usually you don't want to go the Shadow Priest. They're tankier. You want to be going after the easier class, so the class has more crowd control. So we're going after the Mage in this instance. But that means Side Fiend will be even more threatening because we're a melee cleave. So you want to save maybe like a lightning bolt when you know it's about to come off cooldown. Once again, I'm going for a hex out of a stun. If we get the hex, we get it. He garrotes the mage, so he can't decurse it. I didn't have Tremor Totem for the fear here anyways. We're using our wind shear a bit aggressively. See, I just wind sheared the Mistweaver monk. The reason that I'm doing this is because, again, we have a druid. So the druid is pretty much immune to most of the crowd control of this team, whereas our ability to get damage on the mage is going to be pretty limited because of how much they are able to kite. So interrupting the Mistweaver can be a good way to get pressure for your team. And there's another Side Fiend. You can see it off in the corner right here, right behind my buff frames, and it's so far away. So the druid manages to snipe it with a Star Surge, but you also want to be paying attention to that as enhanced because you have range damage with lightning bolt, so it's actually one of your highest priorities. I go for hex again. Mage has learned his lesson about not counterspelling. I try to jump to purge the altar time. I can see that to the left of his health bar, this kind of golden bronze looking icon. You always want to try and RNG hit that, because if you do, they lose a blink charge and they lose the ability to reset their health from where they were at. So it's just one of the best things that you can purge outside of Ice Barrier whenever that's up. And then when you just have purge, you want to just be pressing against a Mistweaver because you can remove their most expensive hots and you can run them out of mana. Now the monk here is running at my druid. That means that he wants to put crowd control on my druid. I have Tremor Totem, which can remove that. So if you see a monk running at your healer, you want to try and play close to them. So you can see I'm kind of playing in between this pillar next to my druid and also kind of close to the mage. And this is so that I can use Tremor Totem on him if I need to. You can also project the totem in range of your healer. Like right now, you can see my druid's getting songed behind the pillar. So I could Tremor Totem here and then throw it in range of the druid if it's not. I prioritize killing the Side Fiend and trying to get into range to do it so that the hots at least heal, and then I can put a grounding totem and toss off heals out. So anytime your healer is crowd controlled like this, you want to try an off heal. Not enough. Honestly, it was probably off the back of not tremoring and projecting it fast enough to the druid. I was saying that I was aware of it, but if I had been able to tremor that just like a millisecond faster because they trinketed it, means that they wouldn't have had to trinket that. They could have triggered the silence. We would have stayed alive there. We could have kept going. We might have been able to win, which is another reason I recommend that everybody who plays gets like OBS, records their gameplay, looks back at it and sees what they could have done better, because it's always going to improve your gameplay. It's definitely accelerated my ability to do it whenever I'm making these videos for you guys as well. So I would recommend that you even do it yourself if you're really serious about trying to advance as a player at the moment. Now we've got a Mistweaver, and our comp is incredibly vulnerable to this. They have double decurse, they have multiple range crowd controls that are spammable for Mistweaver, and we're going to get kited very hard against this matchup. So we want to run in once again. I actually shouldn't run in. We should want to get a sap. This is me spacing out after losing that last game, I think, but you actually want to wait because my rogue can sap the priest. We can open on a different target. Now going druid can be a way to get around this as a spell cleave, but for some reason my rogue just gives up on that target. So we got Barkskin. I switch off the druid and immediately start going after the mage instead. I use my astral shift pretty early on here. Unfortunately, our monk songs the bleeds off of the targets, and it looks like the rogue wants to try and go on the shadow priest instead. So we're going to try and go on the shadow priest. Typically, they're a lot tankier. I'm trying to go on the druid, trying to pressure the rest of the druid, because you have to basically attack 2 targets at least against the druid. I root him behind the pillar as I see my rogue getting pressure on other targets. I also see a Side Fiend off in the back left, but choosing not to kill it. So this is the mistake of round 2 or round 3 and 4, was not killing the Side Fiend. We drop down our little sprint totem to try and help our rogue. I see alter time, but I don't have a purge, so I'm just kind of doing damage into it to race him to use it so he doesn't get too far away from where he's placed it. He probably wants to reset it to get a blink as soon as possible. We are going to need to off heal a lot when you have a Mistweaver against a mage, because they're going to get crowd controlled and their healing basically goes to 0 at that point. But you can see we're kind of split DPSing. This is mostly accidental, but it honestly isn't too bad to do it against a druid, as long as you switch to the priority target when you crowd control the druid, right? You start whittling them down, get bleeds on multiple targets, and then hone in on the target that doesn't have life bloom, which right now the mage doesn't. So that's my main priority, is I just want to attack the guy that doesn't have life bloom, and I want to just be purging that target as much as possible, because it'll be difficult for the druid to maintain hots on it, and it's creating a lot of pressure. The mage is at 50%, the shadow priest is getting kidney shot, the rogue is also now in range to kill the Side Fiend. So this isn't too bad of a strategy against the double casters. And then I just got to make sure that I'm off healing anytime that the Mistweaver is put into crowd control. So I see Side Fiend and I got a lightning bolt loaded, so we're going to target it down, lightning bolt the Side Fiend out of the match. Just keep flame shocks up, keep purging, keep using our lightning crashes as well, and just try and stay on the target as much as possible. Mage is basically 0 hots. However, condensing on one target to finish it, like right now, the priest is kind of getting low. Unfortunately, our Mistweaver is songing off our bleeds. This is something you definitely want to avoid doing as a Mistweaver with an Assassination Rogue or a Feral Druid on your team. Song of Chi-Ji removes damage over time effects on the target, and Assassination Rogues are obviously hyper dependent on that. Now the Shadow Priest is repositioned really far away. I'm continuing to hammer the mage. My main goal is to try and focus on shutting down the mage, shutting down the polymorphs, shutting down the heal over time effects, maybe swap into the druid when he gets cheeky to try and move in and stun as well. This is a great time to swap to a druid anytime they're moving in for a cyclone or they're moving in for a stun. Usually they're going to be kind of low on hots because they've been maintaining it on the targets you've been attacking earlier on. This strat is a bit of a kind of like wear your opponent down strat, and you can kind of win on mana with this type of play. So I see the Mistweaver moving into Paralyze and Song. So honestly, both of us going to the Shadow Priest right here wouldn't be too bad because Life Bloom's on the Mage, Shadow Priest is the half, we had Crowd Control on the Druid. So condensing right there onto one target would be great. I Hex the Mage, he actually trinkets it, even with the Druid's ability to decurse. We have Ascendance, we're going to rip this. I go over onto the Druid. Unfortunately, I stacked up for a Fear. And seeing the Shadow Priest move in like that, I should have known he's going to go for a Fear because Shadow Priests don't just run at a target to do nothing. And going after the Druid's a bit reckless, but I think the Mage still has a lot of blocks. So I kind of just make this swap out of nowhere. And if the Rogue had seen it, I should have pinged it. We probably would have dropped him. Like the Rogue is literally right next to him at like 10%. And I don't think I think maybe he put bleeds on him now. But if that swap was just a little more coordinated, we probably would have been able to finish the rest of Druid at that time. So a lot of this is coming down to like little decisions, and honestly, like typing a strat in the room would have been a good way to win this round as well. Something like you go Shadow Priest, I go Mage, but follow the pings. Like if an attack ping goes out, try to swap to that target or something like that, because it's not as straightforward with the rest of Druid of just like attack this one thing and finish it. Sometimes it can be at lower ratings, but as you start to climb and you get higher and higher, it gets a lot more challenging to pull off that type of strat. So now we're swapping to the Druid, but we're also really low and our Mistweaver's crowd controlled, so it's very reckless time to do it at this point in time. We're trying really hard to do it. Mistweaver's trying to paralyze to stop damage, but it's just too late, honestly. It's just 60% damp, making the swap a little bit too late. Mistweaver did not enjoy that. Maybe the Rogue saw how low he got. Again, that's why it's a bit harder, more challenging to play against those types of comps in solo shuffle, is because coordinating those setups, coordinating those swaps becomes a lot more challenging. So that's where using pings can come into play. Typing like we should swap Druid in the waiting room can be a good way to do it. Like follow the pings for swap to Druid. Set up that strategy before the gate opens, because otherwise things are going to get messy pretty quickly. Now we got Mage Enhancer Shaman. This is like one of the weaker setups you can get in Shuffle, is where you don't have a Mortal Wounds effect, which is an effect that reduces healing that a lot of melee DPS attackers have and Demonology Warlocks have, and sort of Unholy DKs have. So with this, we also can't really hex too much. So we're at a huge disadvantage, honestly, in this matchup, because our two main advantages aren't accessible and we don't have Mortal Strike to reduce healing. So I just rip Ascendance right away, knowing that the Rogue wants to crowd control my Mistweaver and he'll probably be far away. So it's a bit YOLO to try and ship it like that, but that's just me knowing that the Rogue is going to be far. He has to choose either to open on me and stop Ascendance, which means my Monk isn't CC'd, or he's going to open on the Monk and I'm going to get some damage out immediately with Ascendance and be able to force cooldowns and get my Ascendance rolling to the next round, basically, in that scenario. Now, I could trinket this. The main reason I'm not was because I didn't see the Death Mark or Kingsbane, but as soon as I did, I trinket walled immediately. Unfortunately, it was overlapped with the Life Cocoon, but I don't think it's necessarily bad, because Death Mark plus Kingsbane, that's like the big moment where the Rogue is going to be KOing you. I am trying to swap to the rest of Druid. He fakes me here on his Cyclone. I still think it's important to try and swap to Druid, try to get pressure on Druid, try to force him to hot multiple targets. It's just not very effective to tunnel one guy. And I'm honestly kind of going on the Rogue and the Druid, swapping between them. Mostly because Shadow Priests are highly durable, especially if you don't have Immortal Wounds. I tried to pre-burrow here, anticipating a Kidney Shot Smoke Bomb, because that's, if you trinket before Smoke Bomb, usually that's the next big threat. So you got to use defenses a bit preemptively. I'm using my Windrush Totem to try and kite the Rogue. So then he does get the Kidney Shot. We don't see a Smoke Bomb, so it looks like we're okay. Mistweaver isn't in crowd control, so we can just sit through this comfortably, toss out some off-heals when we come out, interrupt the Cyclone, and then kind of go after the Rogue. I also see that there's no Life Blooms on the Rogue, and I'm tracking that here. You can see this green icon right here. That's a Life Bloom. It'll stack with the number 3 on it. So if you see a 3, it's fully stacked. That target's going to be pretty tanky, pretty durable. But Assassination Rogues are typically a really good target to be able to take down, especially for a mage. They can kind of kite them around. So if the Rogue goes mage and starts kiting him around, you can swap Rogue. If Rogue goes you, maybe you want to go Shadow Priest to cleave 2 targets. But I do think Rogue is a bit more ideal in this matchup, since we don't have Mortal Wounds, we don't have a lot of stuns to interrupt the Shadow Priest. They're going to be able to get a lot of Vampiric touches off successfully. It's going to be difficult basically to sustain pressure on them. Now here they've isolated our mage, so they're going to force an ice block with that crowd control that they were able to achieve. We do have our grounding totem. We're still kind of hammering Rogue a little bit, maybe a little bit too hard in this position. I should probably be going after the Shadow Priest to bait hots onto the Shadow Priest. I'm just tunneling Rogue because I don't think he's going to die. But now I see a double song, so I'm just going to keep hammering damage in on the rogue. I'm going for a cap totem out of it as well, but there is a Scythe Fiend off to the left there. We get the cap totem, rogue vanishes. I try to hex off the cap totem, but unfortunately I think it was immune there, so it's a bit of a waste of time. We got evasion and Iron Bark though on that push, and the Scythe Fiend didn't really result in a lot because the rogue was pressured a little bit too heavily. I see double fear onto my teammates here, so I want to tremor that, and Druid's in melee, so I just attack Druid. If Druid ever comes close to me like that, I just immediately start attacking them, force them to run away, force them to waste globals hotting themselves, force them to spend mana, and then I switch my attention back. And I'm kind of playing at ranged here again, trying to stay out of range of the rogue stuns, out of range of his disarm, so he has to make a choice. He's either going to step to me to stop my ascendants, or he's going to step to the mage to stop crowd control, or to try and go after them. So my monk gets a nice triple stun here on the trinket. I jump into the smoke bomb to finish him because he's incredibly low. I know he just used evasion and Iron Bark earlier, and we're able to close out and finish the round. So tracking those cooldowns and keeping a mental note on them, so that when you have your ascendants and you know where your checkmate position is, a really important component for enhancement shaman. So if the rogue doesn't have evasion and doesn't have Iron Bark on the druid, yeah, that rogue's going to have a hard time surviving without those two main defensive cooldowns. So I want to commit to that. I want to jump in, and I want to finish the match at that moment in time. And assassination rogues are typically a really good target. The only time you really necessarily wouldn't want to go on a rogue like this is maybe in like a melee cleave lobby with all melee. You kind of want to go the healer, so that way you're not stacking up and getting cleaved if the other team does decide to go the healer. But in this type of situation, the Shadow Priest is very tanky to our comp with no Mortal Strike and no consistent stuns. And the assassination rogue is not. Assassination rogue is actually very fragile. And this matchup actually should be a lot easier because Mistweaver is a lot more exposed to polymorph and a lot more exposed to hex. So we actually have that as an advantage here in this matchup. If they go mage, I can hex. They go me, the mage can sheep. Those are the main advantages. Whoever's not getting attacked should be the one looking for crowd control. I just laid down a cap totem back here, tried to move it and snipe him, but unfortunately missed it because he's a little bit too fast with the roll. I go for a hex though. We get the hex. He gets a fear, but it looks like it breaks. And we're just going to pop ascendants because the rogue isn't in range, and I want him to make an important decision. Either attack me and stop my ascendants, or attack the mage and stop the Ray of Frost. So we just create this like two-pronged, almost like mini moment where you become an elemental, but I didn't kill the Scythe Fiend. So again, this has been the mistake of the lobby. You can see the little Scythe Fiend just chilling back here. It got an ice block and an Iron Bark. So this is why against the Shadow Priest, it's really important to see where it is, because if you're not attacking them, it can kind of get off your screen. It can be a bit more challenging to actually detect where it is. And the Shadow Priest is positioning very tactically, like you're hiding in the corner off the camera basically, and just spawning in those little Scythe Fiends, getting a big edge. Try to drop down a sprint totem here for my mage to enable him to be able to kite the rogue a bit. I also see them swapping Druid, and you can see that I'm kind of just playing from ranged. I don't want to get garroted during the vanish window and have the rogue apply really big bleeds. So I'm just playing from ranged, purging, waiting for an opportunity to go for a hex. Because with this type of comp with no Mortal Strike, it's basically crowd control the healer, spam a bunch of Storm Strikes on the target, try and finish it in that window. So my mage has a sheep, now I move in. Now I start doing a little bit more damage. So I play a bit more tactically when I get a comp like this with mage and elemental, and I like pick my moments to really go for damage, as opposed to just trying to like do a huge amount of overall damage in this specific scenario, and that usually works out for me. Obviously, you want to be trying to do as much damage as you could. I should honestly maybe be attacking the Shadow Priest during those vanish windows to keep pressure. There's another Scythe Fiend, and look, I think I've learned my lesson after losing how many rounds to it. You really got to be prioritizing that Scythe Fiend as much as possible. I'm moving towards the rogue, and we're just waiting for this polymorph icon with a shield next to the monk to disappear, because when that's not there, it means we can hex them fully. When we can hex them fully, that means it's more likely that the rogue will die to the damage that we are doing. I also see the monk chasing my druid here off on the left, and I should have paid more attention to it because I think he's going to try and go for a song. So anytime you see this purple icon on your healer, they're always going to press a song right after, so I drop a tremor before it even happens, because I know right at the end of that purple icon, it's just going to be a song that I can use tremor on. I root the monk behind a pillar out of line of the rogue, and I kind of just chase the rogue down here. My mage is baiting him into a good spot behind a pillar out of line side of the rogue. Using a wind shear on the monk here wouldn't be too bad of an idea either. Unfortunately, the priest moves in and gets a double fear. So our mage is going to be alone here because we didn't kill the Scythe Fiend in the beginning. We're running low on ice blocks, so we're going to toss off heals out whenever your healer gets crowd controlled. Toss a healing surge on your teammate or yourself, depending on who's the target. Here I see that polymorph icon's disappeared from the monk, so I want to try and hex him. That forces the Shadow Priest to silence me. And there's also a Scythe Fiend, so we'll lightning bolt the Scythe Fiend. And then we'll just immediately, we're kind of waiting for this life cocoon to fall on the rogue. So we toss down a root totem, preventing the rogue from getting to my druid in the leg sweep. We get Dragon's Breath to stop them from getting to my druid in the leg sweep. You want to protect your druid from swaps. So unlike the monk where I'm protecting him from crowd control, protect the druid from getting attacked. So using a lot lot of roots. We're using a lot of stuns, grounding totems. We get a double cap totem, and I have Ascendance in a second here, but unfortunately I'm like right in melee range, so I try and reposition, but then he uses evasion. So popping Ascendance here is not going to work. I'm just going to spam Lightning Bolts and keep Flame Shock up, and I'm just going to wait, much like that earlier round. I have Checkmate. I have Ascendance. The Monk has no Trinket. There's no reason to go behind the pillar and stack and potentially throw the game. You can just stay out here, attack whoever you want, force them to eventually leave, or force them to stack up. So the Monk tries to make a move, pulling away from the pillar. We get him caught in a polymorph in the middle of the map. Shadow Priest is trying to move here. I don't pop Ascendance because the Priest does Disperse, and I don't want the Rogue to immediately just move in and disarm me. So I'm trying to find that moment. Right now, these Vortex, he's pinned in a Frozen Orb, but he just used a Vanish. So I'm just waiting for that checkmate moment to be able to pop. And now he Shadow Stepped, so I know he's out of mobility. I can immediately pop on him and punish him for swapping to the Druid. I see Iron Bark. I know that will keep the Druid alive, and I'm able to finish him. So it can get a bit awkward, right? When the other team is running away from you, knows that specific window that's going to be able to finish the game, tries to stop you. So you got to be paying attention to range and know the limitations of those classes once they've committed their mobility, and then make your commitment and just hammer down the Wrath of Thor to be able to finish them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown of the Enhancement Shaman. I hope that it helps you and your gameplay and your future success. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.